What are some of the weirdest crimes criminals will come up with? Let's find out, starting with number 6, Mannequin 3, going to jail. A guy from Poland had the bright idea of pretending to be a mannequin just to rob a store. But his mannequin act was caught on CCTV, and this time, 80s heartthrob William Ragsdale wasn't around to save him. The scam was simple, even if a bit tedious. The man came into the store, found a great spot to stand, and then pretended he was a mannequin for hours. He was able to do this because the store was large and because his motionless act wasn't bad. After the staff of the store had closed down the store with him in it, and the mannequin magically came to life and sprang into action, just like the hit 80s film series. He came with his bag and then burgled the jewelry store for all it was worth. He was eventually caught and held for 3 months. The owner of the store said that the man wasn't a first-time thief. He was known in the area as a frequent robber, and there was one documented case of him robbing another nearby store. In that case, he'd found his way into another store after grabbing a meal at a nearby bar. He made sure he waited until the store closed before he burgled it. Once he was in that store, he grabbed all the designer clothes he could find. After he was done, he stopped again at another bar to grab a meal. But a security guard caught up to him before calling the police. So what's the fate of our winner of the stealing mannequin challenge? Well, he's currently being held by the police and faces at least 10 years of jail if convicted of burglary and theft. What exactly was his exit plan? To just smash out of the front and alert the police? And how did no one notice that there's suddenly a mannequin that wasn't there before? Didn't the person in charge of that department take a look at it all during the entire shift? If we did it, we'd be a mannequin with sunglasses so we could blink. Number 5, Hamster Hotels. Ryan Sentell State released live hamsters in his hotel room in a ridiculous ploy to get a free stay. And Ryan didn't just do this at one hotel location. He repeated the same scam at multiple locations and caused thousands of dollars worth of property loss for the hotels. The scam was simple. Ryan would go into the hotels with hamsters and then let them loose in the room. Afterwards, he would point out rodent droppings to the staff and demand a refund. The hotels then had to spend thousands of dollars to get rid of the hamsters that Ryan had introduced. But it was the cutest infestation anyone had ever seen. This scam worked in at least 2 hotels where he tried it. However, his luck eventually ran out. The police soon found out about his tricks and arrested him. Once he was arrested, another hotel manager spoke up about Ryan pulling the same scam at their hotel. According to the manager, it costs $159 per night to stay at the hotel, and Ryan had scammed them out of 2 nights' stay. The police aren't quite sure, but they believe that Ryan must have pulled the same scam at more hotels in the area. Right now, he faces 2 charges of theft by deception and 3 counts of criminal mischief. But what we want to know is, did anyone get to pick up and pet the hamsters? Or give them stuff to put in their cheeks? Like, if you're in a hotel room and you see droppings, you're going to be super pissed, right? But then it's like this cute little hamster scurrying by and maybe you get to pet it. Number 4, Win My Home. Loretta Buchanan thought she'd won a £2 million dream house in a raffle draw, but she was wrong. She only won £5,000, and now she's calling the entire raffle a scam because she wasn't given a house. The raffle draw in question was something called the Win My Home raffle. The point of the raffle was to get people to buy tickets and then purchase a particular mansion with the bought tickets. The mansion would then be given to the winner of the lottery. Unfortunately, that's not quite how it went down. Loretta, who was a newly married school teacher, hadn't wanted to enter the draw, but she entered it at the last minute and spent £10 buying 10 tickets during the final weekend of the raffle. She was announced as the winner, and she thought it meant she would get her home. The owner of the house that was supposed to go to Loretta was this guy named Elliot Andrew. It turned out that Andrew was dating the director of the raffle, Yevgenia Levitska, and so he had a connection to the firm behind the whole scheme. He'd been dating Levitska for at least 5 years, and the duo had gone on a bunch of expensive vacations, which, like, you can see how that's looking a little shady. The firm organizing the lottery was registered at Andrew's home before its address was changed a few months later. The plan was that the draw would raise the money to buy Andrew's home, and Andrew would then give the home to the winner of the draw. But that would only happen if enough tickets were bought. Sadly, they weren't. The firm had a target of selling £2.5 million of tickets to buy the £2 million home, but that target wasn't reached. Since it wasn't reached, there was no home to hand over to Loretta. In a show of goodwill, Andrew drove over to Loretta's house himself to break the disappointing news. He explained that she didn't win, but said he would give a consolation prize of £5,000. He reasoned that would more than make up for the £10 she spent on the tickets for the raffle, and apparently the raffle had lost money, so the money, the £5,000, actually came from personal pocketbooks. But Loretta didn't quite agree with that logic. Instead, she complained about several things. First, she said that the firm didn't inform her about her win properly. She said that Andrew just drove over to her home and just gave her a bottle of Prosecco when she could have at least gotten champagne, which honestly sounds like she's just mad. Andrew explained that the conditions of getting the home were stated in the lottery's terms and conditions, and Loretta said she wasn't aware of the terms. In any case, she accepted the money Andrew gave her, but she later gave an interview to a local newspaper saying she felt that the lottery was a scam. In the interview, she said that the competition was a scandal and that she was looking into whether she had legal recourse. Of course, this annoyed Andrew and the firm, who then threatened to claw back the £5,000 Loretta had been given. In a separate interview, Andrew outlined his version of things and said his only connection to the draw was that his house was the prospective prize if everything went well. He also said that the firm didn't defraud Loretta, as it was clearly stated that she would only get the house if the lottery raised enough money. So, who do you think was in the wrong here? Were the organizers of the lottery fraudulent, or did they just stick to their policy? Was Loretta just too busy to read the rules of the competition? Or was there some shady business going on since the firm did raise £2 million but still claimed they lost money? While we think it's a good thing that Loretta got even £5,000 out of the deal, we can understand how that could feel a little scammy. She was more than reimbursed for the money she spent on the ticket, given that the lottery didn't reach its money-raising goal, so Loretta did come out ahead. Tell us what you think in the comments below. Number 3. Hand insurance. Miguel Blasquez Palacios did the unthinkable when he hacked off his hand in a bid to defraud an insurance firm. Miguel was dealing with a lot of debts, so he decided that the smart thing to do was to stage a car accident that would remove the hand. To do this, he detached his hand and disposed of it, placed a tourniquet around the limb, and then drove his car off the road. Then he lit the car on fire and called emergency services. The first sign that something was wrong was when a policeman arrived at the scene and met Miguel enjoying a smoke. Miguel told the police that he had swerved to avoid an animal on the road before crashing. He also said that a metal bar had smashed through the windscreen and sliced his hand off. Before the accident, Miguel had taken out 11 different insurance policies with 8 different firms. If his scam had worked out, he would have earned close to $3 million in insurance payouts. Unfortunately, Miguel wasn't the best storyteller. His insurers became suspicious of his story when they learned that he'd taken out so many policies shortly before his accident and that he had a mountain of debt. They sent private investigators after him, and the investigators revealed that the cut his arm had suffered was too clean to have been done by an accident. By then, Miguel had already gotten £300,000 of his total payout. He was arrested by the police and made to repay the firms he'd already collected insurance payouts from. He was also jailed for 3 years for his troubles. So he didn't get any insurance money, got 3 years in jail, and he also lost his right hand. Now that's just the worst case scenario for his scam. We almost feel bad for this guy. Almost. Number 2. Wait, defense attorneys lie? John Scarpa has been accused of bribing a witness to get his client off the hook. John Scarpa was meant to defend his client, a man named Reginald Ross, a member of the LA-based Crips. Ross was on trial for the passing of 2 men. One was of Raymond Hertz, a road crew flagman who Ross said had delayed him at a stop. After the delay, Ross tracked Hertz for a week before ending his life right in his car. This guy is a real sweetheart. The second man was John Williams, whose life was ended the same way. Ross mistook John as the man he was after, his original target, John's brother, Scott Williams. Ross hoped that Scott's funeral would draw out yet another man who owed him money for illegal substances, and then he planned to take that guy out at the funeral too. It sounds like a story straight out of The Wire, right? The prosecution had a lot of evidence against Ross and had 2 primary witnesses willing to implicate him. One of them was Louis Cherry, Ross's friend. Cherry had earlier told the police that he had helped Ross plan Williams' passing. Scarpa's plan to get Ross off off the hook was to place the blame squarely on Cherry. So he had an ex-con, who was also a private investigator, get in touch with Cherry and bribed him to take the fall. The ex-con private investigator, a man named Charles Gallman, told Cherry that he would get a lot of street cred in the big house for his handling of Williams and Hertz. So Cherry goes for it, gets on the stand, and recants his testimony about helping Ross be a horrible human. Cherry insisted that he was the lone bad guy in the assassination. However, even that didn't help Ross get off the hook. The prosecution had one other primary witness whom Ross had confided in and had phone records that provided that Ross had indeed committed the crimes. In the end, he was sentenced to 74 years in jail. Afterwards, officials discovered what Scarpa and Gallman had done. They were soon charged with violating the Federal Travel Act for allegedly using cell phones in the bribery scheme, which is so dumb because Scarpa was getting paid anyway. Why mess with that? If you're enjoying this video, be sure to stay tuned right here to find out about how this weird church scams their members. Number 1. Heartstopping Meals. A man only known to the internet as Aiden J faked a lot of heart attacks for a lot of free food. His scam was simple. When he was done with his meal or had eaten his fill, he would clutch his heart, fall to the floor, and start shaking in fake agony. Of course, this would alarm the restaurant staff, who would then be pressured into foregoing the bill for the meal. Aiden did this scam several times at different restaurants in the area, and it always worked. Who's going to charge someone that just had a heart attack? Since Aiden always pretended to be a Russian tourist who didn't speak the language and always wore designer clothes, people didn't readily catch on to his scam. Aiden had been caught and recognized many times for his little play, but was never really detained since the amounts he was stealing were so low. Most times they came up to around 15 to 70 euro, so it was easy for the restaurants to write it off. However, Aiden was caught when he tried the same trick in the restaurant twice. The staff instantly realized that he was faking it and handed him over to the police. He was then fined and jailed for 42 days. It's a lot easier to get a free meal just by saying you found a hair in it, right? SPAC Nation is an evangelical church in London. They focus on saving and serving at-risk youth in the community, and by that we mean scamming and lying to at-risk youth. Crooked pastors such as Mariam Ula and founder Toby Adegboyega have been at the center of controversy since the church's inception. But still, teenagers and millennials give money to them in hopes of turning their life around. The church pastors even forced their followers to sell blood for donation money. Officially named the Salvation Proclaimers Anointed Church, SPAC Nation first appeared in 2008. Created by Pastor Toby Adegboyega, the church only had 3 members in its early stages. SPAC is based in South London and is known for its direct approach to getting criminals off the streets by inviting gang members to their services and asking them to drop their weapons. These tactics gained them the media attention needed to grow their church. SPAC continued its mission with a particular target in mind: people under 30 who lived in dangerous areas of London. SPAC became a popular community outreach program that received praise from the media and even the Metropolitan Police. SPAC operates in neighborhoods with high crime rates and a population consisting of primarily black millennials. Their weapon exchange program got the attention of both the Conservative and Labour parties. The program asked former gang members to hand over their weapons, which SPAC pastors then gave to the London police. The church has also found creative ways to attract more people to their services. SPAC formed rap and R&B groups to perform and sing songs about salvation and Jesus. However, the leaders of those groups would soon become the loudest voices speaking out against SPAC. Before the SPAC controversy became mainstream, they grew their member base from less than 300 in 2016 to 2,000 in 2020. SPAC has taken its time to get to know its congregation and exploits the lavish lifestyles of its pastors to lure more black millennials to their church. The pastors dress in expensive clothes, wear high-end jewelry, and drive fancy cars. To the public, SPAC's mission seemed well-intentioned. According to the people they've scammed, there is a lot to be discovered. The church faces many accusations of misusing funds and impersonating its members to open bank accounts on their behalf. One specific case regarding a 19-year-old woman named Lovis stands out. The girl, who was staying at one of the church's youth houses, said SPAC took out a £5,000 bank loan in her name without her even knowing about it. SPAC used the £5,000 to create a company on her behalf, from which they transferred the money to a different set of companies owned by SPAC pastors. When she confronted the pastors, they told her it was for the greater good and that the money will buy a bigger youth house. Of course, as expected, Lovis would have to deal with the loan payments herself, which added up to £10,000. Sadly, nobody knows what happened to the money afterward. As if it weren't enough, some people have even come forward saying they were forced to take out a universal credit, a type of welfare in the UK, only to get half the money. There have been reports of sign-up days in which up to 50 young people would sign up to get the government benefit. Once approved, SPAC would take half the money. They targeted vulnerable young people to gain their trust before asking them for ridiculous amounts of money. If the person said they wouldn't be able to get that money, the church would suggest a bank loan. Pastor Samuel Akokia asked a young man to take out a £20,000 loan to fund an investment opportunity. When the man became suspicious and asked for proof, Akokia became angry and asked if he was doubting a man of God. Pastors and high leaders within the church would pressure their followers to fork over more money. When it didn't work, SPAC just took the money anyway. They had all of the bank information they needed to apply for loans in their followers' names. One young man left the church after he was scammed out of £2,000, but then received a letter in the mail saying he'd been accepted for a £5,000 loan. The biggest project funded by SPAC was their trap houses. As confusing as the name may be, trap homes were meant to save young gang members from violence in the streets. TRAP stood for Take Risks and Prosper, a way to change the narratives and lives of at-risk SPAC members. In these houses, young people lived close to pastors in the church to keep them away from crime. The media reported on the project and praised how it allowed young black people to get out of gangs and violence. Many of the kids even said they would be dead if it weren't for the trap house. Members of the British Parliament called these houses a holistic solution to the rise of fatal knife crimes in London. But the stories coming out of these houses were far from a fairy tale. Reports of mistreatment within the houses surfaced, with a specific case of a 16-year-old girl stating she was mistreated in one of the trap houses. Another incident where a young boy said he had been whipped with a belt while a pastor recited some Bible verses was quickly dismissed by the church as a joke. One trap house was run by Mariam Ula, the queen bee of SPAC scams. She ran her trap house strictly and pressured young women into handing over all their personal and financial information. She said she'd be managing their accounts and asked them to take out £5,000 loans to keep the church's mission going. Given the negative attention the trap houses were receiving, SPAC Nation quickly, publicly distanced itself from the project, saying they were independently run houses. However, they were clearly promoting them as SPAC safe houses all over social media. One of the most notorious pastors within SPAC Nation is Mariam Ula. Known also as Mariam Ula, among other aliases, Ula has a laundry list of fraud convictions in the UK, Spain, and Belgium. She had been busted while running a gang of thieves targeting luxury fashion brands all over Europe. By age 26, she had already been to jail 5 separate times. If Ula is known for something other than her convictions, it's the way she's chosen to share her life story on social media. During her last stint in prison, she was 8 months pregnant. Forced to give birth in jail, she used the story to advertise a healed persona, making it seem like she'd turned her life around. Her story was even featured on some of the UK's most watched talk shows. She decided to become a mentor for women, using her embellished life story to create yet another fraudulent business. Mentor Matcher. People saw her as a philanthropist. Really, she used her way with words to persuade women into investing in her company, scamming more people along the way. Some victims claim she took between £77,000 to £100,000. Many women opened up about being scammed by Ula. Her response was to stay quiet. It's clear she has become an expert in laying low and resurfacing with a whole new personality, which is what she did with SPAC Nation. She reappeared as an ordained minister of the church and started preaching the prosperity gospel, using her life story as the main attraction. As expected, Ula didn't change that much. This time, she used the structure SPAC was providing to profit from vulnerable women. Many of her victims said they were impressed when they first met her, given her lavish lifestyle that included expensive clothes and dinners at top-notch restaurants in London. She targeted young, vulnerable women with good credit scores or who had not taken out loans in the past. Then she forced them to get money and give it to her. Since most of the girls were staying in her safe house, Mariam had control over them. Along with high leaders from SPAC Nation, she used their power to force young people into doing whatever they could to give them more money. To top it off, she never kept up with loan payments, letting the brunt of the money fall on her victims. While she was off partying and living in luxury, the at-risk millennials she was supposed to be helping were left to handle the banks. SPAC Nation has become a clever organization when it comes to luring young people into its ranks, and Mbula isn't the only one doing it. Knowing how gullible a young person from an impoverished background can be, SPAC pastors created novelty schemes to secure more fraudulent loans. On one occasion, 28-year-old Toy, a churchgoer, was pressured by her pastor, George Jumbo, to get a £5,000 loan. She had only met him a few months prior. He even sent her a video waving a large wad of cash stemming from his successful crypto trading business. Toy, trusting his guidance, and decided to invest in his business using money from multiple loans, even allowing him to apply for a loan on her behalf. At the time, the loans fell through, but she'd already handed over all of her personal information to Jumbo. Then, 2 years later, she received letters stating she'd been approved for a loan she knew nothing about. The letters and loans kept coming in. Soon, Jumbo had acquired more than £10,000 of loans in her name. Another scheme included signing up for universal credit. SPAC used their trap houses as the scene for large-scale sign-ups. They had an actual universal credit representative take applications and formed a line of about 50 young people to enlist in the government program. They would hand over their passports and IDs and were told their names would not appear in the official data, so it would look like they hadn't even been enrolled. Some members found themselves in £1,000 worth of debt, even when they were told they wouldn't have to pay anything. SPAC members would even use WhatsApp and Snapchat to pressure victims into taking loans as soon as possible. But this wasn't enough for SPAC Nation. Apparently, the church went as far as asking youngsters to donate blood for medical trials. SPAC members were paid £100 to donate blood for medical trials, which they'd turn around and hand over to their pastors. Known as bleeding for seed, the church considered the blood money a donation offering from its members. Mbula, one of the pastors in charge of the scheme, pressured youngsters via WhatsApp, actively asking them for their seed. As the public became more aware of SPAC Nation's tactics, a group of victims banded together to raise their voices over the injustices they went through in the church. Let the Youngsters Go is a group of former churchgoers and workers who claim that SPAC preachers exploited them for money. They actively campaigned for young SPAC members to be set free from the church and any wrongful debt acquired while a member. One of the group's members, Take Mad Max Mukuna, who had joined SPAC back in 2018 and remained there for 10 months, fronts the church's rap group and feels responsible for so many people getting involved with it. When in church, Mukuna says he started having disagreements with Pastor Toby about his lyrics. He wanted to leave but felt pressured to stay. Now he sees a lot of people coming out of the church and speaking up against it. On one occasion, there was a public clash between the group and SPAC members, which had to be dismantled by the police, effectively protecting SPAC from the attack. Their financial schemes were pretty blunt. They put a lot of emphasis on donation, forcing people to donate seed money if they wanted to continue to come to their services. A significant part of their service revolved around cash, getting it, motivating others to give it, and investing it. Some victims felt they were pressured to give the church money, and because of the prosperity preachings, they thought they'd get their money back tenfold. At one point, Pastor Toby was reported to asking specific amounts of money through an entry fee. There would be an envelope that asked for a £200 minimum donation. While there have been several allegations of fraud since 2019, it wasn't until 2020 that the Metropolitan Police started investigating SPAC Nation. According to the media, there are at least 20 active cases that authorities are looking into. SPAC Nation has denied these allegations, stating they have a robust system to handle all their complaints and that they would not respond to any of the individual claims about their pastors. According to SPAC, they cannot monitor what each pastor or leader does. As of 2020, Pastor Toby has stepped down from the newly named Annexation Church. He was replaced by pastors Dami Balogun and Samuel Akohia, who've racked up numerous fraud claims against them. While Pastor Toby published a press release saying he was leaving, it was unclear whether he was honest about it because he said he would still be leading the church publicly. On top of this, 2 people involved with the church have been arrested on fraud allegations presented in early 2020. Police claim these charges are targeted at the pastors, not the organization. As for Mariam Ula, she's still free. Although she is part of the ongoing investigation, there is no clear sign she's stopped her scamming. No stint in prison is enough to turn Mariam from her scamming ways. So one question remains. Will she ever be caught? Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comment section what you'd rather have. Both your arms or $1 billion in cash.